How are you finding the show so far?
Well, wonderful, actually. You know, I go to HR conferences all around the world and had a chance to sit with some of your presenters, and just good thinking, and I think it'll be brilliant. It's my first day, so we'll see.
And how important do you think the HR agenda is with the current crisis that we're going through?
Well, you know, I think the HR agenda is important regardless of the crisis. I think, you know, great organizations are built on great people being able to execute the corporate or organizational strategy. So whether you're in crisis or you're in boom time, that's always going to be important. But to your point, crisis does tend to accentuate the gaps. And I think what we're finding is we don't have as many good people in the right places as we would like, and that's HR's role, is to find the right people and put them in the best places.
How difficult is it to motivate people when things are looking gloomy? What are the, would you say, are the key ingredients in order to pull that particular trick off?
Well, you know, as we've written in our best-selling book, The Carrot Principle, available at good bookstores everywhere, it's really not, I don't think it's really as difficult as we think. And the lessons that we learned at our mother's knee really do apply. Treat people with respect, communicate with them clearly, reward them and recognize them. And our practice revolves around, you know, the positive reinforcement. You know, it's interesting, I heard a brilliant comment the other day. It said, you know, when we are in times of crisis, we make time to criticize. I mean, something goes wrong, boy, we're on that right away. However, we don't make time to praise. And what is going to be more reassuring and more engaging in a crisis than to find the positive? Now, does that mean you never have a tough conversation? No, Jason, it doesn't mean that. But when you have the tough conversation, you've earned the right to be critical. You've earned the right to have that tough conversation. Because here's what we found. Great leaders care about their people, and the way they express that caring is through that verbal praise, reward, and recognition. Leaders that are high in praise are also high in trust. And when you're in a crisis, you need to trust your leaders implicitly. You know, it's the old war analogy. If you're in the trenches, who do you want next to you? Someone that you trust. You build trust through honoring their efforts. And it's an everyday kind of thing. It's not an end-of-the-year banquet. That's why we call it a carrot a day.
What difference do you think there is in what motivated the baby boomers and what motivates Generation X and what is motivating Generation Y? What are the clear differences in those groups?
Yeah, I think the clear difference is just the way that we communicate. I think the goals very much are the same. I mean, and are noble and hardworking. I think those are still all in play. I think the way that you communicate it is important. A frequency of communication needs to go up the younger you are. You know, there was a generation, no news is good news. This generation, no news means something really bad is going to happen. You know, so continually communicate with me. I think in this generation as well, the social responsibility of organizations. When you find organizations that not only produce a good product, not only have a good reputation, but give back to the community. These are more and more important, and more I see young people coming. Are you eco-friendly? Are you making your community a better place? Are you helping the homeless? Are you feeding the hungry? Are you gathering resources for the tsunami victims? That you've got a noble purpose above and beyond that, but not just corporately, we write a check, but how can I personally impact that? Will you let me gather the clothes? Can I organize the march? Can I help raise funds? I think those are our differences. The social consciousness is higher, and the need to communicate is higher. And I always fall back, the great communicator is the reward and recognition, the praise. I appreciate the time you gave me.
Do you think the corporate social responsibility expectation of Gen Y is really realistic for businesses? Do you think it's...
No, it isn't, but isn't that the job of youth? You know, isn't that their role, to push us beyond what we normally would do? I mean, your father probably didn't care for a lot of your views, and your kids don't care, and that's how it's supposed to be. Young people right now, I think, more than ever, are just smart. And they're really smart, and you can't hoodwink them. You know, you can't sort of placate them with platitudes. They want information, they want it now, and they want to know that it's real. Is it unrealistic? Absolutely. Should it be? Absolutely it should be.
A lot has changed in the last year. At the beginning of, say, 2008, attracting Gen Y and motivating Gen Y was very much a case of some very flexible and very rich ideas. That seems to have dissipated a bit with the current downturn. Does that mean that Gen Y there's a very good chance that Gen Y will be will feel that they've been shortchanged? Do you think that's a possibility?
You know, I think whenever you have an economic downturn, people are going to see it as winners and losers. What I find is, even in crisis, there's always room for talent. So the cream will rise to the top. If you've got people that were floating along and making all these demands with marginal talent, yeah, they're going to be losers, and they should be. But I think a crisis, and I think this is going to be a very interesting year. I think this is the year when great leaders really step up. And I think a lot of those will be very young leaders that understand the crisis and understand the social responsibility. And I think it's going to be very exciting.
Do you think that flexible working provides or presents a number of challenges with regard to motivation? Say, for example, with remote working, there are certain challenges there.
No, I think it presents opportunity for creative recognition. It is different. You know, you Twitter, you Facebook, you do all these things. I think it creates a really robust opportunity for creativity, because you're not going to see the same faces in the same seats every day. You've got different creative people that are going to work late into the night, and they're not going to come in till noon. The trick now, I think, is not so much base it on hours worked, but results rendered. And if you stick to that formula, I think you're going to be fine. Is it uncomfortable for baby boomers that are managers and so on? Yes, I think it is. But I think it's not a negative. I think it's a positive.
What about the burnout problem that certainly a lot of people in certain sectors are probably feeling right now? That's opposite to the problem that you normally face. When somebody is so into their work that they won't drag themselves away from it. That also is a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think good leaders have to be careful with their top talent, because top talent, they burn themselves out. They're passionate. That's what they want to do. They live, they breathe. Their lives are their jobs. So good leaders have to look at that work-life balance, because they will not do it. So flexibility, is key. Does it cause certain problems and challenges? Not if you've got the right people in the right places. And again, back to the role of human resources. You know, have you put talent in a place where they can excel? And then how do you manage that talent? There are times where literally you need to take someone's BlackBerry away from them and throw it in the river and say, you've got to take 2 days off, or you are going to expire. But no, those again, I think, are brilliant opportunities. How do we challenge or channel all this wonderful energy and intellect to really grow and build our businesses?
Every now and then, whenever there's a crisis of any kind, the barrels tend to be turned on HR. Do you think that's fair, and do you think that's relevant? Do you think that HR takes on too much of that responsibility? You know,
I think it's always fair. I think if you're in HR and you are adding value and you are part of the discussion and you can show the value that you bring, turn the barrels on me, absolutely. And you should take that flag. I think what happens in HR is there's this feeling of being relegated, and that we don't have a say until it's a crisis, and then it's thrown on us and how can you expect us to succeed? You know what? That's your fault. You need to step up, be very proactive, and say, look, hard times are coming. Everybody can read a newspaper. Everybody can have a sense for their industry. Here are the steps we need to take. Be the voice of reason. Be the one that says, look, these aren't numbers, these are people. We have a social responsibility. And if you're doing your job, I don't think the barrels get turned on you. I think the heads turn to you and ask for your advice. If you've done your job well, then I don't think you've got anything to fear.
With regard to diversity, equality and inclusion, and with more transparency being required in organisations, given a choice, would you prefer that your staff talked about how much they earned to each other, or do you think that sort of information is demotivational?
You know, I think that's probably a pretty good question. You know, everybody's sitting around comparing their what they make. I think if that's happening, you've probably got a fairly toxic environment to begin with. I think when you've got an environment that really is engaging, people aren't worried about what other people make. They're worried about satisfying the client. They're worried about the innovative new product that's coming out. If you've gotten to the point where people are comparing paychecks and saying, well, if she's worth that, then I'm worth that, then the problem goes deeper than a simple answer to that question.
In general, do you think diversity presents problems with regard to motivation? In so much as organisations are very much under the spotlight now because of legislation.
Right.
Do you think that that's going to sort of be an increasing problem for organisations to be seen to be doing the right thing?
Right. I think it is if you don't have an organisation that knows how to communicate.
Right.
But if you communicate clearly, again, I don't see it as a problem. I see it as an opportunity. The worst thing you can do is have, 15 middle-aged white women sitting in a room, or Indian men, or African
HR directors.
Yeah, exactly. The diversity, and the difference in thought should be stimulating and should be productive. I think the only challenge is up front, lay down the rules of how you communicate.
Yeah.
Be sensitive to different cultures. Not everybody is vivacious and will jump up. So make sure that you have a conversation and you have dialogue and not monologues. So in that, I think can it be challenging? Yes, but I think those are wonderful challenges. And I think good leaders look at those as opportunities to now look at problems from different angles, and it makes everyone better if you communicate properly. And I think that's the challenge that maybe you're talking about.
Yeah. And with regard to events like this, do you think it's really important that HR directors and indeed business leaders take time out to attend these sort of events?
Well, there's no question. You've got to be around good thinkers. Find out what people are thinking and doing and best practices. You can say, well, I'm so busy. I'm holed up. I've got all these priorities. Say, yeah, but how are you going to solve those problems if you don't have any input? If you're in a cave, the light isn't very bright. You come to a conference like this, you get some of the best minds and some of the best thinking around issues that are pertinent to you and your organization. Take the time. It's nourishment. You wouldn't say, well, I'm so busy, I'm not going to eat this week. Right? And so really this is eating, this is nourishment for your brain and your soul. These kinds of organizations and these kinds of events, I think, are critical to the development. What are they doing, in Europe? What are they doing in Australia? What are they doing in North America? There's going to be 2 or 3 ideas there that are going to help you if you take the time. So absolutely, come join us.
Chester Elton, thank you very much.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.